County Board of Supervisors. This is a special meeting. It's August 13th. We have our wonderful district attorney here with Stuart, and they are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. So I'll go ahead and invite them up.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go. He did a better job standing at attention than I usually do. So, all right, thank you very much. Okay, well, welcome and good morning, everyone. It's a little warm in here. The air conditioner was not working over the night, and we have a fix in place, and it's pumping out cool air as we speak. So hopefully we'll get the temperature down in here as quickly as possible. So apologies for a little bit of discomfort, but you're very welcome to be here, and appreciate folks being here to have a conversation about ARP. So with that, I'll go over to our county clerk, Ms. Ryan, to read our public participation procedures, and then she'll read our first appointment for 9 a.m. this morning.
Okay, good morning. In order to protect the health and safety of our Tuolumne County citizens, this board meeting is open to the public with modifications. Face coverings are required for all attendees, regardless of vaccination status. During the board meeting, citizens physically present who wish to provide public comment will be invited to do so by the board chair. Citizens who are not present and wish to comment should be prepared to use our call-in line at 209-533-6581 to queue for verbal public comment. Options for public access audio and video live streaming. The public will not have access for public comments via these media options. They are available for audio and visual only. Access Tuolumne County at www.accesstuolumne.org and click Watch Live, or Comcast Cable 8. Or you can also use our Zoom webinar via your computer at https://zoom.us/j/987-3738-5155. Or you can call in at 1-669-900-9128 with webinar ID 987-3738-5155. Please note, Zoom webinar services tends to have a reduced broadcasting delay in comparison to the county and Access Tuolumne live streams, and is suggested for the closest to real-time viewing and listening. Granicus live streaming through the county website is currently pending a scheduled maintenance. Important public notice: under the Governor's Executive Order N2520 and Order N2920, members of the Board of Supervisors can participate by teleconference. Accessibility requirements: if you need SWIFT special assistance during the board meeting, please call 209-533-6581. 9 a.m. direction on the use of the funds provided to the county by the American Rescue Plan.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am Jason Terry. I'm joined up here with Liz Peterson, Eric Earhart, and Tracy Riggs from your County Administrator's Office. Today we'll be going over the discussion on how best to utilize the American Rescue Plan funds that have come into the county. So our mission statement is that we commit to providing exceptional public service that creates a healthy and safe community, exercises natural, cultural, and financial resource stewardship, promotes economic prosperity, and enhances quality of life. These next couple slides we'll go through very quickly as a recap of where we've been in the last couple meetings. We have received 50% of these funds already in May of 2021, and we anticipate to receive the other 50% in May of 2022. We do generate interest on these funds as they are unused, and through June 2021, we have an additional $6,700 that can be utilized just on the interest earned of these funds. We've talked in the past about the 4 different pillars of what is eligible for use of these funds, but really the one that gives you the most flexibility is the lost revenue for governmental services, and the other 3, as a reminder, are COVID response, premium pay, and infrastructure that is specifically water, sewer, and broadband. But this lost revenue could also be used for those types of eligible projects or activities. And so it is staff's opinion, and we have determined that that entire allocation could be considered lost revenue under the calculations provided. And as a reminder, the funding cannot be used for payment into pension liability funds, paying down internal and external debt, and building up contingencies, reserves, or rainy day funds. I'll keep pointing at the mic when I talk. Okay, so this slide is fairly new here. When we're talking about the county portion of the American Rescue Plan funds, we are talking about that first green box in the top left. That is the allocation that was going to all jurisdictions, state, local, tribal, and that truly is where we're focusing. But there are a lot of other buckets that are still developing. We don't have information on all of these items that are here, but it is important to note that there are other funding streams coming out for other funding activities. So some of the things we've already seen are like the stimulus checks, the payment protection program. We know and have seen those programs come out. We've heard both for state and federal funding that education, there's a lot of funding coming out there, and that's ranging from drinking water that's going to, COVID response in the classrooms, those types of things. Of course, there's going to be a health bucket here, and that's not just for vaccines and testing, but also some of the mental health type programs that have been discussed. An allocation for transportation that we see Amtrak and airport relief, but also some transit infrastructure there. We don't know quite how that's rolling out. But that is something we'll continue watching, specifically if it comes to any like road infrastructure or public infrastructure in those means. And then, of course, other programs where we see a lot of those grant type programs, some that will be, familiar to us are the disaster relief, the assistance for fire grants, safer grants, EMPG, and in speaking with our innovation and business assistance director, we'll also be pursuing the economic development assistance as well. And then a few other funding opportunities that we know are on the horizon, but we just don't know quite what they look like yet. So the payment in lieu of taxes, secure rural schools, we talked about that briefly last meeting, but also broadband funding and grants. And I'm sure you all saw earlier this week, the Senate approved or passed the Invest in America Act, which was the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, more than 500 million of it being new funding towards different federal highways and bridges and those types of infrastructure projects. And just as a staff recommendation is to use the ARP funds for immediately urgent projects while we continue to learn more about these funding sources, see how they can be used to make sure we're not overlapping and possibly paying for projects that would have multiple funding sources, but maybe leaving a project that only one of them would have been eligible for. And then this slide is what staff heard as direction from the last August 3rd meeting. You can see the various items, projects, activities there, equaling just about $3.3 million of quantified activities. And of course, the salary adjustments was something that was discussed, but without quantity there. And so we see the pre-funded fire and code enforcement, that action that was taken at the recommended budget. We've talked about an economic stimulus program, a matching type program in which local businesses and local residents could benefit, in which if it's a $100 cap, citizens could put in $100. It's a matching $100 to go and use at local stores, and really, continue helping not only businesses but our residents as well with that program. Community projects, a grant program that was discussed for those projects that would benefit the community, potentially nonprofits, but also other individuals and groups that conduct activities that will improve the community. Code enforcement abatement, we talked about that, continuing to adding funds to ensure that properties can be cleaned up and those actions can be taken that would support the code enforcement officers that were approved in the recommended budget. County fire equipment of $1 million, and I believe the discussion there was in the last meeting. Let's let fire tell us what the equipment they need is, but we did hear the $1 million there. Expanded space needs studies for this building and for A&F, making sure that we're utilizing our space wisely and to the extent that we can, pulling departments out of rented facilities and really freeing up those funds and using them wisely. Public Works document management system, we've seen this already in our community development department, but trying to get away from paper and get away from the space that it takes up. A GIS software, we know that's something that's coming up. It's a relatively small cost, and it's something that's used by all types of organizations, but very heavily within ours, of course, as well. And the same with the, excuse me, surveyor and printer scanner, which would also, it could help us digitize documents, but also provide an increased capability over in our surveyor's office, the EOC parking lot, and animal control equipment, which we will go into here in just a couple slides. We'll dig into that a little bit more. Are there any questions on this slide or any of the previous slides?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question going back to slide 5.
Okay. This one.
And under the first left, state and local recovery funds, $362 billion. The last mention is public lands and tribal fund. I'm interested to know if your office has heard anything about I know it's a $2 billion public lands fund. Have you heard anything regarding that yet?
Well, I'll look really quickly. Yeah.
The last time we spoke with NACO in regards to that, specifically the PILT payment, it would not be until late September, early October till we actually knew what that allocation was going to look like, or even the calculations in which they make that determination, because it will not follow the standard PILT calculation.
And it's being considered as a PILT allocation and not separate from the PILT?
Correct. It's a completely separate allocation over 2 years, but it's still PILT.
Okay.
It's just in addition to our
In
traditional
addition,
PILT.
so
Correct.
we'll get our PILT funds, and then we'll get an additional public land funds.
Correct.
On top of that. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I had one question. If you can go back to the slide showing the details of the allotments. So I believe you said the animal control equipment, you were going to go back to that? Okay.
Correct. In a couple slides here, we have some additional information that was requested by your board last meeting. This is one of those items, so we do actually detail what that equipment is and what the costs are.
Okay, I had one item that they just recently costed out, so if it's not there, we'll discuss it then.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move along.
Okay, so as Jason mentioned, there was some additional information that your board requested, and so these next few slides we're gonna go into that. So first, of course, as we mentioned, specific costs for animal control, for various equipment and some repair needs. Your board also requested information about unforgiven COVID loans for our local businesses here in the county, and Cole has some information that he's going to discuss in a bit. And then we also discussed the Community Projects Grant Program, or that's kind of the draft name that we're giving it. And you were looking for some specific framework about what that grant might look like. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then also your board was requesting some details on if you were to allocate the $250,000 toward code enforcement abatement projects, how much would that get us? So let's get into it. So this is the detailed information for the animal control equipment requests. Whenever we do these, they are estimates. We try to do our best with what they might, try to make them as accurate as possible, but they still are estimates. So we're estimating $10,000 for a shower, about $3,000 for a washer and a dryer. Again, those are for decontamination and other purposes. And the animal control officers need laptops for their cars. There is some discussion about working with the sheriff's office, potentially. The sheriff's office has some that were funded by a grant, so it's possible they might be able to transfer those over, but we're still kind of working out those details. So if that's not possible, then it'll be $5,000. Then there was an outdoor, like, covered barn area behind the animal control building, and that would be for evacuated livestock. There's nothing out there that's covered right now for livestock and animal control. And then, as you heard at the last meeting, there's some safety issues with the cat kennels that they currently have. So they would need to replace those. That would be $17,000. And then the newest item that we discussed was the floor repair. And that would be like an epoxy, then sealing the floor. And they estimate that around $21,000 to $25,000 for the repair that needs to be done in there. So that would be a total of $85,000.
And that answers my question. Thank you. The addition of the floor.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so then I want to talk a little bit about the Community Projects Grant Program. Again, a working title. So the purpose of the program really would be focused on community enhancement projects that have public benefits. This is really about community revitalization. And really trying to kind of stimulate, not so much stimulate the economy, but more, revitalize the community. So I should say that we met with Daryl Slocum from the Sonora Area Foundation per your board's request. Daryl is very interested in working with us on this project and their staff there. He had some really good feedback and input. And so we would work closely with him and his staff to develop the specific guidelines for the program if your board wants to pursue this option, and potentially work with them to administer the program as well. They are willing to do that. There are some reporting requirements generally with the American Rescue Plan funds that could be a bit more cumbersome than, say, what we had to deal with CARES Act. So we'll work out some of those details as to if it's more efficient to just run them straight from the county, or if we work with Sonora Area Foundation. Sonora Area Foundation is aware of that, of kind of some of the reporting requirements potentially, and that we're going to figure out those details and see what the best, most efficient process would be to who administers the program. Nevertheless, Sonora Area Foundation will really speak into those guidelines of what that program would look like. So the eligible applicants of the program would be, what we're proposing is they would be nonprofits, existing nonprofits, or individuals who are undertaking projects for what we could call charitable causes or community benefit. But regardless, either a nonprofit or an individual, they have to demonstrate that they have the ability to meet these reporting requirements. Again, as we learn more details about what those are, we'll be able to provide really clear guidelines on that. But that will be an important piece of who's eligible. Also, we are putting this out there, and your board can speak into it or we can discuss it later, but considering a maximum grant award of up to $20,000 per project, but allowing flexibility to award, this really is about awarding as many projects as possible, not about getting chunks of $20,000 funding out there necessarily. This is about the projects. One piece that Sonora Area Foundation that Daryl mentioned is that that there are a lot of potential small projects that could be really beneficial, and that our nonprofits, they have been actually faring fairly well throughout the pandemic. There's been a lot of, with the payment protection program and other funding sources, that the need isn't so much, let me have $20,000 so that I can continue with my operating expenses for my nonprofit, although I don't want to discount the fact that I'm sure that need exists. Really what we want to target with this program is, as I mentioned, these community enhancement projects, revitalization. If someone wants to paint a mural, say, someplace in town, or, do some of those other projects that really kind of, bring us back into kind of normal. So that's what the Community Projects Grant Program we're looking at, and the goal would be to get this program implemented as soon as possible. That this would be one of the first ones right out the gate. So we can move on, or if you have any questions or comments now, whatever.
question about? Okay.
Yeah, I had just one question on that. In your discussions with the foundation, are they going to charge any sort of admin fee to administer this? And what do we know about that?
Yes, thank you. I meant to bring that up. So they do not charge any kind of admin fee to administer the program, although we did discuss that depending on what happens with the reporting requirements and some of the auditing type things, they might end up needing to charge something, but typically it's not their practice to charge anything to administer this funding.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
I do have questions
Oh,
or
yeah.
comments, but just on that note, I think that's a very fair
Yeah.
request. So.
Okay, so now we're going to bring our Innovation and Business Assistance Director up to chat a bit about some of the business loans and grants that have been received here in the county.
Morning. Oops. Good morning, Board. Cole Bella, Director of Innovation Business Assistance. At the request of your board, I put together some of the information based on loans. So this isn't going to cover grants. We can talk about grants, but this is directly information on loans. So the question was, how impacted were the industries in Tuolumne County in general? So you can see reducing a lot of the noise of the specific industry code. So there's this thing called an NAICS. It's a code that's specific to a type of business. We reduced it down to pretty much its root, which is accommodation and food services. So that's like hotels, restaurants, retail. You can see that, as we surmised, our tourism industry was the one that was the largest impact. And then construction, we had a large amount of that's like your not just those that are contractors, but also our HVACs, our plumbers, and then healthcare. And those are, healthcare goes all the way between dentists and our physicians to a lot of the social services as well. But what I think is important to note on here is how it's spread on the percentage of those loans, and then also how much of it's been forgiven so far. And I've had quite a few conversations with some of the businesses in town, because when you see that there's 130 loans in the accommodation and food services and only 62 of them are forgiven, that's not necessarily that they're not getting forgiven, it's that they haven't asked for forgiveness yet. So actually this exercise was really good for me to be able to find a list of businesses that I should do some outreach to. I've already talked to quite a few of them, and it's like I said, they haven't done it yet, or the sheet hasn't caught up. Next slide. And so this is the breakdown of those industries now at greater than 150. So, sorry, go back one more slide one more time. You can see that there's 802 loans in Tuolumne County that had less than $150,000. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about the makeup of our business community. Just around 90% have employees of 10 or less. And the Paycheck Protection Program loans were given based on payroll. And it says it's a loan, but as long as you used it at a certain allocation towards payroll, it's forgiven. So next slide. So you can see there was only 67 loans in that greater than 150,000, but now you can see a good chunk of them were actually in that construction industry. So it makes sense. A lot of our larger employers are in the construction and then accommodation. You see a trend. And you can see a good chunk of money going towards those industries. And again, you don't have to necessarily focus too much on the forgiven amount, because in that construction, there is a group that had a large amount of that. And after having a conversation with him, they've asked for forgiveness and they've gotten one or two. It just has not cut up on the sheet yet. Next slide. But here's the one that I think shows the real impact. When it came to mid-coronavirus and businesses were trying to figure out what they're going to do. Remember, we had, right at the beginning was the Paycheck Protection Program loans and the Economic Injury Disaster loans. We both called them loans, but this one truly is a loan. The Paycheck Protection Program was forgiven. Economic Injury Disaster loans is a 3.75% loan for up to 30 years. So these are your businesses that were truly impacted. This was last case scenario, I'm going to take on a loan from the SBA to really stay afloat. A lot of these, the top out was about $150,000. You may have gotten $10,000 up to, depending on how many employees you had. And then there's this thing that came a little bit later on where the federal government and through the later on CARES Act approved bills, they came out with paying down some of the monthly payments, so essentially deferred payments. So on that it looks like on the middle column, the SBA made payments on behalf of businesses, essentially up to $9,000. They had an algorithm, up to $9,000, up to about 3 months, they'll pay your payments. So in effect, it slightly reduced a lot of the loans, not significantly. But you can see on that far right column, we have a potential outstanding loan amount of about $2.2 million in Tuolumne County. Unfortunately, we don't have these on the industry code side. SBA for the economic injury disaster loan did not include that in your or in the data. But I have a feeling it's very similar, because if you look across also the state grants, which was about 2.4, there was about 191 of those grants that came into Tuolumne County. So it was across the same industries: accommodation, food services, and construction and healthcare. So I think that's 3 sides. Yep. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
I do. Thank you. And I'll ask questions now because I know you're here and I'm not sure if you have to leave, but I'm glad we asked the question and we're going down this bunny trail because I think it's important. And, this is the first time I'm seeing it, so I need more time to go through it and digest it some. But what I'm hearing you say basically is there's a lot of, in the first 2 slides, there's a lot of people who need to be aware that they can ask for a loan forgiveness, and maybe, I'm not sure if that's our responsibility to let them know that, but if we can somehow.
Yeah, I'll work with my SBDC partners, the Small Business Development Center. They have a lot of Paycheck Protection Program webinars. So It's just about making sure that those businesses that haven't gotten forgiveness remember or are utilizing some of the resources that are available to them.
So could we maybe at a future date, maybe just get an update from you maybe about how that process is going?
Sure.
So, because I don't want it to be our responsibility, but in a sense it is because we shut them down.
And maybe I'll say it now so that it's hopefully someone hears it that's listening, that for those loans that were made under $150,000, so the 800 or so businesses in our community, there's actually a portal now. So you can just go to the SBA website, and it's a Paycheck Protection Program portal where they made it just a digital intake form for you to turn it in to get forgiveness. For those loans that are over $150,000, you still have to go the older route, which is a little bit more paperwork.
Okay. And then just to confirm what you said on the last slide, the last page, what I'm hearing you say is this is basically the ones that can't be forgiven. These are hard loans.
Correct.
And
3.75% for 30 years.
Okay.
This is right here, $2.5 million of loans that were essentially. I've talked to a lot of these businesses. It's not they did not want to take these loans.
Right. They absolutely had to stay afloat. My question is, how do we know? Because I'm just telling you, I would hate for like a company or a business to take out a loan, hearing this conversation, trying to get forgiven, trying to kind of game the system. How do we know when these loans were taken out? Like, how can we confirm that they were taken out during the COVID crisis shutdown last year? Specifically related to COVID.
I can share that data with you.
Okay.
There's a lot of fields. So I narrowed down a field of there's about 1 million something loans on one page for the economic injury disaster loan, and there's 12 sheets. That's remember when I came here, I said it was bogging down the computer, and so I've reduced that to essentially 5 lines. It's a lot, but it has that information.
So what would you feel would be the best way? Because I see this number, and that I think at the end of the day, that's the number I was going off of. That's the number I want to try and affect somehow. Is this last slide? But what do you think the best way moving forward is? Should we slow down and find out about some of these other industries and see if they can get some, or if they're not going to get loan forgiveness, maybe they're going to end up on this in the near future? I mean, what would be the best way to proceed?
So the economic injury disaster loan, I hope I'm saying this right. I think we have until December. You essentially have until December 30 of this year to request one.
Okay.
And when you do look at the curve of when they were asked, the vast majority were asked back in the mid of coronavirus. Let's just talk about the construction industry real quick, because I've talked to a couple of them. They were significantly impacted in 2019, or right as Corona happening. But as you all know, 2021 has been a gangbuster years for contractors. If you try to get someone to paint your house, you can't get them there in 4 months. So this isn't about necessarily resolving any more issues or trying to help them come out of coronavirus. This is essentially fixing holes. A lot of those industries have a giant hole in 2019. And a lot of those holes for a lot of businesses are some holes that are going to be pretty hard to come out of, or at least going to be bogging them down for quite a few years. So I don't think that anything we can do with American Rescue Plan, unfortunately, is going to resolve what happened in 2019. It's trying to figure out where the priority or where we can best use American Rescue Plan dollars to affect those that really have been affected and are going to be infected for the next few months. If there's another surge, or we talk about more of those mandates that it sounds like the world is talking about. So that's kind of what I think you guys should be looking at least in the short term. Yeah, you have another 5 that we can talk about later on, but in the short term, you're just talking about how we can help those businesses that you saw on the slide before really kind of recoup and recover and still move forward and try not to close their doors.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that perspective, because trying to tie it all together. And I think the hard part that I have personally is, with this money, 10 million sounds like so much, but what's our general fund? 80 million a year? This is 1/8 of what our general fund usually is. And so it's important that we really can't be equitable, but we have to.
And if you also consider the total amount across all of those, 10 million is a drop in the bucket as well, because you're closing in almost 100 million of kind of things moving around between loans and grants. And so.
And then just my last question back to this is, if I go to the slide before, this is basically the same as far as industry. That's about the industries that were impacted by the.
Yeah, if you look at so essentially we only have Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster.
Okay. Welcome back to this special meeting of the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors. So today we're talking about the American Rescue Plan, and we just heard from our community members about some of the direction that was given on August 3rd. And so I wanted to bring it back to the board to kind of go over a little bit of the specifics that we sort of touched on prior to public comment and see if we've had any new information brought in. But I also know CAO Riggs, you had a recommendation about cybersecurity that's not reflected here. Did you want to cover that first, and then maybe we'll go back to the list?
Yes, thank you. So on the list that our office had given you, we had a list of projects, of which many are covered on this list in front of you today. But cybersecurity is one of those items that we are really encouraging your board to consider investing in. Roger has done a lot of work in the little bit of time that he has been here, and we have a lot more work to do. But this is something, and he is here, he can explain to you again if you just want to know what exactly does that mean. But it is approximately $350,000, and that would pay for 3 years of the service and of what he's needing and recommending. But like I said, Roger is in the room if you would like to hear more from him about that particular item that I would encourage you to approve as part of this package.
Okay, I think I would. So what does $350,000 buy you for cybersecurity, Roger? I should have warned you. You're sitting way at the back, so you've got a further commute.
Good morning. My name is Roger Root. I'm the IT director for Tuolumne County. I mentioned this a few times, but the biggest piece that this solution focuses on is disaster recovery. And as I said, not if we get an attack or not if we have an emergency in Tuolumne County, but when we have that emergency. We do currently back up everything, but the backups are here on site. And one of the biggest impacts with ransomware is that it not only impacts our live environment where people are working, but it also impacts your backups. And so if we were to be attacked today with ransomware, it would cause us to lose operations on all of our systems, and it would cause us to not have the ability to restore those systems from the backups that we have today. The solution that we are looking at allows us to have a duplicate backup on a second site here in Tuolumne County, and then to take those backups and basically harden them so that no matter what happens, those backups cannot be touched by any ransomware or anything else, and then take a copy of those backups and put them up in the cloud. There's a couple options with this solution that we also want to explore. One is the option to allow us to restore in the cloud and not have to restore on premise. So my example is if this building had burnt down, we wouldn't have the facility to actually restore in this building. The solution that we're talking about allows us to restore in the cloud. And what that really does, and if you listen to other agencies who have gone through a ransomware attack in California, they are able to restore critical systems like their 911 CAD RMS dispatch system or their HR financial system within hours versus within months, in some cases, even longer. Sometimes they're not even able to recover. They just have to start from scratch and just really hope that they can figure out a way to get data later. So this solution provides an add-on to our backup. It allows us to have our backup in multiple locations, and then it allows us to harden that backup through encryption and through other tools and store that backup in the cloud and easily restore that backup. And I could go into more specific details, but staying away from what different vendors are providing, they all have different solutions that do basically the same thing. So that's a very general high level of what it does.
Okay, thank you.
I actually don't have any questions. I already had this on my list, and I have a very short list today. So this is of primary and urgent importance, and I'm sold.
Supervisor Kirk.
So the question I had, and I asked this at one of the last board meetings, and you may have answered it, but I'm sorry, please remind me. If we didn't have the ARP funds, how would you have covered this cost?
I think I said this in the last meeting. I will continue to ask for it. I'll ask for it through adjusted. I'll ask for it every time I come in front of the board. I think it's probably the most important thing that we need to look at as in our technology realm right now.
So-
So I will continue just to ask for it over and over and again.
So there obviously is not room in your budget to do it.
It is not in my
It's
budget,
not.
no.
I guess my next question would be, because it is a costly item, and I agree it's a very critical, important item, but I want to ask the question, could you, over the course of 3 years, take out basically a loan against it through the general funds and budget in your budget to pay those funds back, or is there just no space in your budget?
Obviously, I think I'd leave that up to the CAO's office or the auditor's office on how that would be handled.
So I would never recommend that we do an internal loan for software. Other ways that we've paid for implementation of large projects, whether they be IT or others, are also through fund balance when we have a ending fund balance. But we have been putting more in there, and what we also do is when we have IT and maybe projects have been less expensive or something rises that Roger may feel is a higher priority, we shuffle what's around in there and we put other things off and we pay for more items that are more urgent. So where I'm going with is, you already know this, Supervisor Kirk, everyone's budgets are as tight as can be, so there is not room in the IT budget for another $350,000. But if we didn't have ARP funds, I would be asking your board most likely during our, when we go to adopt a budget and we bring you the year-end fund balance, that is one of the places we ask for these types of things.
President Goldenberg?
So, well, first of all, a comment. I'm not in favor of taking out loans. I think that's been part of the problem that's hurt our county's finances. We need to live within our means. But the question I have for you, Roger, is are we dependent on having to do a 3-year contract, or could we do a 1-year contract, perhaps with room for extensions, and look at the upcoming ARP funds that we would see in May for next fiscal year and the year after, perhaps?
So we've only engaged with 4 of the companies that provide this kind of service so far, and all 4 of them have the exact same model. You pay a flat rate up front, which is somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000, and then there's a reoccurring around $25,000 fee we estimated based on our storage for the online storage piece. So the year 2 and year 3, there is no cost, and then their models are all the same. You come back in 3 years, they uplift all the equipment, they remove it, they put in all new equipment, and then you do another 3-year contract. There are probably 20 or 30 vendors in this arena, but based on our research with other counties and cities throughout California and recommendations through Gardner and Infotech, all of our contacts recommended these 4 vendors. The remaining vendors don't provide all the same services and have not been proven in the industry.
Okay, and thanks for that explanation. Now, this is a critical area. I agree. We need to address this. We've seen the incredibly negative and disastrous consequences of areas that don't have, this type of security. So we need to get there, whether we do it all within, these funds or use, as CEO Riggs said, perhaps, fund balance, to get there. We need to decide that, but we have to do this. I agree. Thanks.
Supervisor Brandon.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Initially, my thought was whether this was going to be an extraneous thing or not. I think there's a thought that maybe if somebody comes up, it's a lot of motion, a lot of pressure that's going to end up caving it. What I really appreciate is a very strong, logical argument with examples of what will happen if it doesn't, and the solution to it. And you provided that very well. This is happening to other areas. We did have one in our systems already, and if we shut down because of such a hack, it would affect everything, including public safety and roads. I mean, it would be catastrophic. We think we have IT issues right now occasionally when the camera kind of glitches, right? And if everything was lost. And I know we were talking about, well, what about the option of cyber insurance, trying to get coverage about, if it happens, what in the worst case scenario can we recover? I was reading a thing online saying something like 90% of them were not getting the data back. It was still sold at the end of the day. It was extremely difficult. And that's not a very stable arena right now because it's accelerating so hugely, hard to predict. I just wanted to say I think you've sold me on this. This is something I would definitely support. I'm willing to make a hard decision based on some of these other wonderful priorities to see this funded. So I appreciate your dedication and all the information you've provided, all the questions you've answered.
I agree with the other board members. The main question that I have, and it's a similar question that I have to almost everything on our list, is that we have things like the $6 billion broadband plan through the state, the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that was just passed yesterday, I don't know, within a couple of days, that includes broadband internet. Are you aware of funds out of those monies that could be applied to this? I guess the only concern that I would have is not that we need this, but that we're using ARPA funds, which have a broad range of uses for something that we could potentially have more dedicated, specific funding streams for in the near future.
So I can't answer the questions regarding
Okay.
those other the other funds that are available. I haven't really looked into those. I will tell you that, my wife came home the other day and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm watching board meetings and council meetings from all over California." And she goes, "Why in the world are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I contacted these agencies and they're spending their ARPA money on the same solutions I'm looking at, and I want to see how they're selling it to their board. I want to see how they're selling it to their teams and how they're justifying using these funds for it. And across the board, the cybersecurity initiatives within this funding that's been identified matches exactly what we're trying to do here today. And so there are probably 20 or 30 examples right now of different boards and city councils across California that have approved this exact same solution with these funds."
Okay. Supervisor Goldenberg, I think you have a
So,
follow-up.
I've got just a comment to our board in general and for our CAO. I would propose that we consider that we definitely go with the cybersecurity. It's critical need. We don't need to be placing ourselves at the high degree of risk any longer than necessary. We're already out there. I would propose that we look at the Public Works document management system and perhaps look at postponing that. It is not nearly as critical a need as this, and we could look at that come May of 2022 when we get the next installment of funds from ARP.
If that was a motion or direction, I don't know how it's going, I would support that as well.
Okay.
Well, we're not doing a motion, we're having a discussion here. Right?
Well, hold on. So, I understand. I get what you're saying. So that in order to not increase that total to where we would look at another area and potentially postpone that, I think was.
That was my exact point. I want to retain funds for other uses to the extent possible and not increase our overall amount that we were going to expend.
And I'm in agreement with you there. I think we got to a good number in terms of the total amount of the ARP that we're dedicating up to this point. It's a little less than a third, and then we've got 3 years, so that to me makes a lot of sense. But I'm still, I don't think we talked about the Public Works document management system in much detail. But I don't know, I guess I'd be looking to the other board members to see.
If I can say something just about that, because I already started. We already met with the company who did the CDD document management system. It went really well. We had the vendors here actually this week in person going through what it's going to look like for Public Works, and I do feel strongly that that's important. I feel strongly that the disaster recovery solution is important. And I know Tracy mentioned, she would be bringing it with year-end funds and stuff like that. And I do think there's more flexibility in the year-end funds. I think that if you wanted to look at one of the two funds to fund this, because of the cost of the solution I'm recommending, I would recommend that you still fund the document management system for Public Works, and then use remaining fund balance for the disaster recovery solution. It's going to be 3 months before we can even begin to do that work. We've met with the companies, we've done some other stuff, but it's a very expensive solution. We're going to have to look at contracts. We're going to have to spend a lot of time looking at the implementation. the top vendors that we've talked to are 2 to 3 months out before they can begin working with our project. The company that did the document management solution will be able to start as soon as we approve budget in September. So I do support the project. I've seen the benefits in CDD. And I think that as we are moving to open government, our permits and everything is becoming more available to the public. It's going to be more critical that we have some of this stuff digitized that's there. So I want to support both.
Okay. Well, I'll look to our CAO. What are your thoughts on that? So putting this money toward the cybersecurity system, and then maybe taking the Public Works document management system out of the ARP discussion and rolling that into a broader budget conversation.
I think actually Roger said the opposite.
Oh, okay.
That's what I heard, because if you use, if they're not going to be ready for either one, the funding's going to be about the same time. So it's not really going to matter. I always, as you guys have heard me say, it's kind of the shell game, how and where, which monies you want to use. They're all available to you. We don't have the year-end fund balance for you yet. Debbie should have that for us soon. She's waiting for a few more departments to finalize their entries for her. So I would say either one. Both of these are going to be incorporated into the year-end, but to the adopted budget. So whether you put it here or you use fund balance, the end result is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not trying to, but it's really not going to matter. If you would like to say, we're going to go with this and we'll discuss, because what he's saying is that their Public Works document management vendor is ready to go as soon as we say go. Whereas he needs to do some research, maybe issue an RFP, do a little more work in order for him to do the cybersecurity. So one's ready to go sooner than the other. However, your adopted budget would be addressing year-end fund balance and ARP at the same time.
Okay.
So with that being said, you could do one or the other. It's a shell game. You're just using one money out of one or out of the other.
I guess my only concern is that, the critical need and to protect ourselves, and it may take a little bit to implement it. We know we have these funds. We're talking about, trying to maintain a certain level of, how much we'll spend now versus hold back some, and we don't know the fund balances. So anyways, I understand what you're saying, and I agree that the Public Works document management system is important. I'm very much in support of that. I supported it in our last session. But I still think that we should commit to this, now.
One thought that I wanted to add on to this was something for later, from the presentation by Public Works about the triple Cape seal, was also in the same funding range as the document management system. And like what Supervisor Goldenberg mentioned, this is something that's important to me. I would love to see a digitized, easier to deal with file system. We are moving towards that in a lot of ways. It's important, but it's not as urgent. And our road situation is very urgent. The cost savings that was shown from that project was exceptional, potentially, if we apply that widely. My recommendation, so instead of taking money out of Public Works, I would rather see that go to the triple Cape seal and then also do the cyber recovery funds right now. Those are they're urgent and they're important. I think we got to prioritize them.
The only comment I would have there, I do recall that Kim McFarland stated she had those funds in her budget already for the Cape Seal project. Yeah, that's what she expressed to us, I believe, in our last session.
Okay.
Can we confirm that?
Can we speak to the Cape, because we're texting Kim. She unfortunately couldn't be in the
Well,
building today. but
we're
it
kind of
is-
going off
It is
on
budgeted,
a
just so
bit
your
of
board
a
knows.
tangent here. We were kind of discussing whether or not we want to include the cybersecurity in this and take Public Works document out. Yeah. So, well, it sounds like we're in agreement on a lot of these things, though. So,
Would
Okay.
voting be an okay process for some of these changes?
let's get this cybersecurity thing figured out. Do we want to have that included? So, yes. Supervisor Kirk.
Yes, but I would like Kathleen said, to all of us pitch our thing and have Eric and them take notes and figure out where we are and move on from there.
Well, but that's what we did. That was the purpose of last week. You know, we have a more or less fleshed out plan here, and so.
We're still chewing on $3 million
Okay.
worth of stuff.
All right. Well, okay, let's start with the.
I'm a yes.
Okay,
If you want, I'll kick
cybersecurity.
it off. If you want me to kick off my thoughts,
Well, we're on cybersecurity, so let's
yes,
start there.
Roger, yes.
Okay.
I understand it's important.
Supervisor Goldenberg?
Yes.
Yes.
Supervisor Brandon? Okay, and then I'll say yes. So, all right, so we will include that. Okay, so you want to just start at the top?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay.
I have a recommendation.
So-
What if we're able to rotate around and have basically one alteration of this that we can then discuss and do a vote on and keep going around with that?
Okay.
I don't know
Well,
why we're making this so confusing from other board meetings. I think we should each have an opportunity to give our thoughts and where we like things, tally it, and
Okay.
then the majority will vote.
all right. I
That's
see.
my
I didn't
suggestion.
have that much to add or
I know.
subtract to what we had already worked out. That's was my thinking. But
I hear you.
I hear the board wants to
I've got a spreadsheet.
do this, so let's go ahead and start. Who wants to start?
You want to start first? Ladies first?
Okay.
All right, I've kind of had a whole revisionist train of thought from where we left off with our huge list. I think because of where we're at with the COVID cases spiking, and I think traditionally those spikes can go for a couple of months. We don't know where the next variants are coming from and what that's going to do with our economy. And there's a lot of unknowns out there. We don't know what the future holds long term or even in the next couple of months. So I think we need to take heed and only spend the ARP money right now on urgent needs. This is what I've woken up with this morning, and it was a pretty strong. I'm glad we have had some days to think about this and to sleep on it, because I feel very strongly that we only need to spend money right now on urgent needs. That doesn't mean that all the other things that we have talked about at the last meeting are not important. And some of those needs include salary adjustments, and they're currently under negotiations, so I won't recommend anything for that now. We'll have resources and funding if we only address the urgent one-time needs right now. So as I see it, those needs are the GIS software along with the printer scanner. The GIS software is $35,000, the printer scanner $25,000. That license is gone and it won't be usable as of December. So this qualifies as an urgent need. I had down IT cybersecurity, and we've already voted on that, and so I don't need to go into detail about that. I also see the animal control shower for decontamination as being important. It's a safety thing, and it has not been addressed, and it's $10,000, so I would recommend that. I added one thing today to my list, and that is the mailer to the community businesses. I think that's important, and I think that's urgent. I think there's some timely information we need to get to them so they all know that will help our economy, and that's $10,000. So I added that to my list. That is an urgent need. And we've already approved the code enforcement. That's in process, so I'm not going to change that. And then everything else can wait until October 1st. The community grant program, I think the setup and planning for it to get it just exactly right, so come October 1st, we're ready to press the go button, great. And I think we need to finalize our budget on or before the 21st of September, if I'm remembering that right. And then come the first meeting in October, we can start looking at some of these other things that we've talked about that are also important but not urgent. So my list is very small, and that's what I would recommend at this time.
Just some clarification, Supervisor Half, about the code enforcement piece. You said we've already started. Are you referring to the code enforcement personnel?
Officers, the
not
officers.
the abatement costs?
I'm saying we've already pre-funded it. I'm not suggesting we go backwards on that, keep that in.
but the 250,000 that's on here for the abatement only, that's separate from the personnel costs. Are you suggesting to keep that in as well?
No, I didn't mention that.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I am not, I could be convinced one way or the other on that. I'm not certain. If we have the code enforcement officers and they're twiddling their thumbs, that's not good either. So I'd like to have more discussion on that. That's not a hard no for me.
No, one more follow-up question,
Sure.
Supervisor. On the animal control, we have a total of $85,000 worth of improvements.
10,000.
Just the 10,000
Just the
for
shower right now.
Perfect, thank you. Just want to clarify.
Anything else? Thank you.
Supervisor Kirk.
Well, maybe we're hearing the same thing from the same person upstairs, but I kind of felt the same way. I'm glad we had time. I think the biggest piece of advice, Debbie Batista spoke about it a little bit this morning about go slow, and also Burt Whistle. I watched the video a couple times at ARP meeting, and same thing, go slow. And so I think in wake of everything, I do have a couple questions and then a few things. The question is, and this is just a general basic question, but Tracy, is our budget doing better this year than last year? Year over year? Or are we at a loss?
Well, we're never at a loss.
Well, I know that.
We
but-
can't by law operate at a loss. That's a tricky question. The reason I'm hesitating here is that, remember, we took a lot of precautions when we built our budget for last fiscal year.
Sure.
And so we reduced our general revenues. Those general revenues are coming in better than what we had estimated, significantly better.
Right.
And you heard some of that from the from the Visitors Bureau. So this last quarter, and Deb can tell you, she booked the revenue, was higher than we've ever seen. And so I would say, so last fiscal year was better than what we thought it would be. It was not as bad as the economists were telling us. I do think that we were in a better place than some places like, say, the Bay Area, because people were leaving the Bay Area. Right. And as much as there was some concern with them coming up here, it also helped to support our businesses that were operating.
The reason why I say that is because when I think of American Rescue funds, I want to be very clear on where I think the money should be spent. Because had we not had it, we would still be having a tight budget, and we don't know what the future is, but it's not as doom and gloom as we all thought. So one thing I do want to, before I go through my list real quick, is we were all kind of talking about it. I think something we need to continue to look at and research is this idea of that $2.3 million loans that are in our community for people who basically were almost sunk. What I like to do is have Cole continue to go down that road and basically have further discussion on how we might be able to ask those businesses if we decide to set money down the road for those people to basically provide some sort of profit and loss sheet for like the last 3 years with the balance sheet, so we can really understand what people really were hurt. I think I'm hearing that maybe a lot of people were very conservative at the very beginning and took out loans that maybe didn't need to, but I want more data to make more decisions down the road on who really got hit. I think requiring those profit and loss sheets and balance sheets would help me arrive at that number somehow. So I would hope that our board would maybe have further discussion on that in the future. And then I wholeheartedly agree with what some folks said in the audience about attracting new business. We absolutely need to. It's very complicated when you talk to people about why they're coming up here, whether it's for schools or for housing or broadband. It's not just attraction. It's also things that we can do to make it attractive. But I wholeheartedly agree that somewhere down the road when we can get out of this mess, maybe we could have conversations about TOT incentives and whatnot. But I just want those people to know I'm hearing. Okay, so I'm going to get onto it because I know we all got something to say real quick. Again, I brought up several times critical needs. I think somebody in the audience said that we shouldn't be using funding for ongoing costs, and I completely get that reasoning. But I'm also can't ignore the fact that we have critical life-saving positions that we need to make sure are staffed. And I don't care where the money comes from. If I have the availability to affect change in that area, I'm wholeheartedly going to do that. I agree with some of the sentiments about substance abuse, and we have issues going on. I've been bringing that up throughout this whole COVID lockdown. There's behavioral health issues that we are not discussing or addressing, and substance use and behavioral health issues are rampant. And I hope we can I know Brandon's doing a good job with the behavioral health team of getting very involved and getting out into the public. So I think as a board, we should do whatever we can to bring that message. But on that note about substance use, that's why I've been against cannabis. So you all know where I stand on that. But when people get up and say we need to do something about substance abuse, just know I am. Okay. And if we could return the father to the family, that would get rid of a lot of our society problems. I'm going to go into my list. Fire equipment. I didn't hear you say that. I don't know if you, okay, sorry. October 1st. Well, so the reason why I suggest a fire engine is because, as we heard, they take about 2 years to get here. So, or one, maybe two. So I would still support a fire engine at $1 million. GIS software, because it is used for fire and for safety. And I guess I didn't know that the printer was part of that. I'm fine with those two items, specifically because they will help safety issues when it comes to fire and other things. I will support the cybersecurity ask. I get the discussion about the loan thing. I just had some questions to see if there's some ways that we could do it a different way, but if you got no money in the budget, then I think we gotta get on that. So I do support that. So let's see, I got fire, I got GIS software scanner, I have the cybersecurity, and then on animal control, I do agree that a shower is needed for decontamination. I think a washer and dryer, and it's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. I said this last time, but it's a need that they can't even fill. So I'm okay with putting the shower, the washer, dryer, because I think that's tied in with the shower somehow. And then I would even entertain the cat kennel idea, because I hear that some of their staff might be getting injured because of the way their cat kennels are working. So based on those safety measures for our staff, I would support that, which is about $30,000. And I think that is basically it. Hopefully I'm not missing anything, because I got lots of notes. And then the rest of the stuff I think we should put on hold. I think we should not discard it, but definitely have it on a sheet so that when we have discussions further down the road, bring those up, because we've already spent a lot of time discussing them. So I don't want to waste that energy. And then just to what Supervisor Campbell had said and what CAO Riggs had said about law enforcement, and yes, we are in bargaining, so we can't disclose things. So I just have to leave that conversation at that, but know that we are discussing those needs. So that's it for me.
Okay. Supervisor Goldenberg, do you want to
Okay.
go next? Okay.
Yeah. I'm just going to step down through this list. Pre-funded fire code enforcement personnel, yes. Economic stimulus, the RAD, and the community projects grant program, I'm okay with holding off on both of those until Supervisor Half expressed October 1st. I still really want to see both of those programs, and I think we'll probably get there, but let's be cautious. The code enforcement abatement, I say go with it now, and let's get that list of 6 done. There's lots more than that 6, but it's probably the area, other than recent emails over budget issues, that I constantly get is regarding different code enforcement issues. The county fire equipment, so I've got a list that our Assistant Chief for Tuolumne County Fire, Andy Murphy, presented. So he's got on the list on how he would spend that $1 million. So I'd like to step through that. He's got 1 water tender, 1 Type 6 fire engine, 30 mobile radios, 2 snowmobiles, and a PPE, that's their personal protective equipment extractor washer. Real safety concern there, to have something good to, wash that gear. Then he's also got combo tools, and I just look for a sign. Are we talking JAWS type thing? Okay, thank you. And then he's got utility vehicles and miscellaneous tools and equipment. So he's got prices attached to each of these. A water tender, $315,000. Type 6 engine, $240,000. 30 mobile radios, 140. These are all thousands. Snowmobiles, 30,000. The PPE, 15,000, and the combo tools, 72,000. I would be in support of moving forward with all of those now. And I think Supervisor Kirk made a good point. It takes a long time to get some of this stuff in, especially the vehicles. I think we could hold off on the utility vehicles for now. I'd still be in support of them. But look at it October 1st, and the miscellaneous tools and equipment, that we could hold off on that. So that would shave roughly $200,000 off of his list. It's a little bit less than that, but anyways, that's where I would be on the fire equipment. The expanded space needs study, we're never going to get to the point where we can figure out how to save some dollars, by utilizing our space better unless we get those studies done and then plan on using what funds we have available to do that, to get out of these lease agreements that we've got. They're costing the county a tremendous amount of money. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the expanded space needs study now. I'm fine with holding off on the Public Works dock management system. I do feel we need to move forward with the cybersecurity, $350,000. I'm in concurrence on the GIS software and printer scanner, that we do those now. EOC parking lot, there was a little bit of discussion on that when we first talked about it as a board. We could have a fire today and fill up that space and not have room to park everybody that we're inviting to be part of the EOC. So I would look to move forward with that now. And finally, the animal control equipment. I would go with their whole list, right? It's either a safety measure for the employees or for the employees and the animals both. And it's not that much money. And they've been underserved as far as some of their needs for a long time. And I think we need to rectify that. They shouldn't be just left holding the bag, not having these items. My last comment would be on Supervisor Kirk's discussion about the EIDL business loans. I am supportive in addressing that. I want to hear more information, come back from Cole on that. Cole made an interesting comment this morning about, maybe we pay off their interest, make it a zero interest program. But I think we need to look at this closer. I don't want to make assumptions, straight out. That's a lot of money, if we were looking at that whole thing, $2.3 million. And I think we need to flush that out a little bit more before we go further. And we as a board, we expressed, that we need to address some of the issues during bargaining, public safety and other areas. And, I still feel strongly that we need to do that, and maintaining enough funds that aren't committed right now allows us time to see what we get in fund balance, any other, areas that we're not too sure of right now, see, what the exact fund balances are, TOT, sales tax, and what have you, gives us a lot more flexibility and knowledge before we commit to any one source of funding to address any issues in bargaining or otherwise. Again, these funds should, to the extent possible, be used for non-recurring costs. And if we have room in our budget to fix the other areas, we should do so and continue to use these funds for other one-time costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Brandon.
Well, at this point, I guess I pretty much know which things are going to go and which aren't, right? Strategic. Let's see. So addressing, I think, the one of the big issues that have come up. We are, obviously in a bargaining process. I think at least I've heard certainly what the need is there. This is something that's privileged with law, so it's very difficult to talk about. I would be okay with, I think, setting money aside to address some of these critical vacancies in the county. That said, I think we are looking at trying to discuss and address these things. I know that's something that I think has been probably told by a lot of boards. I just want to remind everybody too, it's a new board, and I think that it's important that we see these issues and they need to be solved. With that, I want to say that I support the mailer as well for Cole's office. And I wanted to add on that he also asked for discretionary funding. And when we talk about economic development, the 10,000 is very internal. That is business retention. It's getting people services. That's to every door in the county. If we're looking at how are we attracting outside businesses, the presentation he gave about the specialized, personalized links to see who actually checked the website, who might be looking to expand their business and the investments, that's coming from the other fund. I would like him to have that flexibility. If he doesn't end up using the entire amount, some can come back to fund balance. What he had requested, was it Thursday, was 20,000. And so I would support 20,000 in addition to the 10 for the recovery mailer. I wanted to add on to this the Triple Cape Seal test for 350,000. That really won me over with potentially what it can do as an overlay in being very inexpensive compared to our current methods. We also had our OES coordinator come up, Dory Beats, and she mentioned that in order to get the CERT teams, which I would remind is also a public safety team in our disasters and emergencies, and we really, as a community, rely on volunteers, $50,000 to be able to expand those across the entire county for recruitment efforts, retention efforts. I think that would have a very high impact. I'd like to bring up for a lot of the employees we've had at the county, this funding can't be used for any telecommuters. I think we do have some that enough that they're doing fine throughout this time, but we do have a lot of employees, I think, as we're learning as well, that are very much struggling to get by, that are dealing with low wages, low salaries, and I would like to see, as part of the ARP funding, some type of hazard pay to some of these non-telecommuting employees that showed up every day, provided these direct services as well, if possible. Let's see, what else do we have? I've got a bunch of stuff. So looking at all of the things from the August 3rd meeting, I'm in support of the 350 for code enforcement. I do think the RAD card and project grant ideas are good things. I would like to have them on there. If we choose to delay them till October, I'm open to that. I just, and I think this could be done in that way where we still set it aside, but I do think that's important because it's not just nice things, it's recovery for groups that have been hit pretty hard. I think Supervisor Kirk mentioned it. It's hard to do this in a way that, we're not going to solve everybody's issues with this amount of funding, but how do we do it equitably? That covers community groups, the nonprofits, the businesses, staff. How does everybody get something and feel that we are, we're not forgetting about anyone? Code enforcement abatement, I agree. I think that makes sense. I would even be willing to ask that we put another 100,000 in specific for the vegetation management in the future. For county fire equipment, I had suggested, my thought, and I understand the more conservative approach to keeping some of this in reserve, but some things like roads are costing us money to not repair, and other ones like fire are putting us at risk of something catastrophic. I would rather have this money working for us right now, and I know that is a little bit of a gamble, but we do know there's also infrastructure funding coming down. Some of these investments, potentially I think could start saving us money very quickly. So my recommendation was to increase Tuolumne County Fire budget to $1.3 million. That would include all of the chief's recommendations, and then potentially a little bit more. And I know this is hard. I don't think Tuolumne County, in my knowledge, has given large material support to the Columbia Fire District. I brought this up at the last meeting, and I'll just keep it short, but it is probably the most financially struggling district in the entire county. With 1 square mile, it serves a huge population. And if Columbia burns down, there's no way to replace that. There's no way to fix that. Everything would be lost. If there's a way to help them be able to replace an engine, which I had in my budget for $350,000, this is a district that operates on $86,000 per year. The chief is paid $8,000 per year. They make every penny, rub them together. I think it would be extremely meaningful, and it would increase the safety of our community. And I would, humbly ask the rest of the board to consider that. I know that's obviously something that affects my district, and I think more towards also too, but it's something that is, I think, a critical need right now. Moving down on this, I think the space needs study is important because we're doing some immediate things with that. I would delay on the public works management system. I'm also for the GIS software, the printer scanner. As we mentioned, those are imminent needs we have to fill. The EOC parking lot, I think, is high impact. I support all of the animal control equipment except for the barn. The barn, we do have the fairgrounds in case of an evacuation or emergency. The barn would serve as a backup in case the fairgrounds was some way compromised, but I don't know if it would be the size we'd need. And again, it's a good thing. It's not saying it's not a good thing, but it's not an urgent thing. And so I think that would shave off $20,000 there. Did we get, Sheriff Pooley, any confirmation on the laptops potential for that grant? Okay, and I'd recommend removing that too, and thank the sheriff's office as well. So that would take $25,000 and leave $60,000 for animal control, which has also, I think, been having a critical issue. And we don't want a rabies outbreak either. I know that's a pretty big public safety hazard. I apologize. I know it's taking a long time. This is why I tried to write it down ahead of time so it would be a little faster, but I wanted to make sure I was able to vocalize these.
You're actually fine. I've been keeping track of how much time everyone's taking. And
great, thank you.
You're right on track.
What Supervisor Kirk had mentioned about trying to do some support for local business, I had about 10% of what I was hoping to end up going into some type of direct loan fund, and then another 10% for the RAD cards as kind of the community support for those that are making our budget work and providing those tax revenues. So I would put a tab in that as well and want to get more information from Cole. I wanted to reach out, as we did with the Sonora Area Foundation, for potential hiring training incentives. As we know, we're also facing an unemployment issue. We're going to need more trained workers locally for some of the economic investments coming in. I think that's something that will help our economy. It's immediately a COVID-related need. We're going to be having unemployment, the rental moratorium, a few of these things ending. That could be a very meaningful partnership. So I budgeted $100,000, offering meaningful but small, basically, incentives to complete a training program and then get placed in a position. I also had $100,000 for entrepreneur grants to get people excited about starting a business in Tuolumne County. And really, it's just enough to put together the business proposal to be able to, I think, get the ball rolling, but $10,000 grants, and partnering with our chambers of commerce to be able to offer them each one that they can offer a local business in every town and city to try and be able to get a new business started, somebody that has a dream. I think it would inspire a lot of people, and we definitely need some new businesses to come in and replace those we lost. Let's see, I think the one last request, I'd say also we've been looking at the library issue. I initially had that in here as part of the requests. I think it doesn't need to be done right now with the ARP funds, but it is something we're actively looking at, I think, with the budget. My last request was another emergency issue related to homelessness in Tuolumne County. As the public, I think this board knows, we passed an emergency shelter ordinance. So we have on paper that we're able to lease or build on a property to be able to offer these innovative solutions, anything from a shelter to tiny homes to emergency modules. All the ones that we read about on Facebook, we see online that other areas are doing. We now have that code. But we need some money set aside to be able to pay for a place like that, or to put together a study to be able to apply for a grant. And there's so much grant funding available right now, and yet we don't have these shovel-ready projects to be able to go for it. I would recommend putting aside $140,000, about 2.5% of the amount total. My last request is more of a question, I think, to Tracy, and we briefly talked about this via email. And I just wonder, we have a $1 trillion infrastructure bill that just passed. There may be a $3.5 trillion one coming up And it's basically touching absolutely every program, service department program. I said program twice, didn't I? Anyway, it's affecting absolutely everything. In this time of all this money out there, and the fact that we're already, I think, at capacity with staff doing all the work they can, applying for all the grants we can, would we gain benefit from hiring any type of grant writer during these next 2 critical years while all this funding is being distributed for broadband, for housing, for roads and infrastructure, and front-loading that, and on the hopes that we would then get potentially millions coming back in from some of these proposals. I would hate us to miss some of the funds that are available because we didn't have enough staff time to apply for them or put enough time into the grant applications. So, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Yeah, I think I'll take a similar approach to Supervisor Goldenberg. I'll kind of just go down the line here because, like I said, I really don't have anything much to add beyond what we discussed earlier with looking at some way to leverage business license fees. I would say that would be the only thing I'd be interested in. And I'm not even proposing we do that now, just that it's something we look into. But I'm kind of, I guess I'm in the middle here. So I do support code enforcement. I think that's kind of a promise that we've made over time. I think we need to do that. So I've heard the county auditor controller and her statements about the RAD card program and community projects grant program, and I understand that. But I do tend to lean on the side of implementing those things as soon as possible, and the reason is that they're very community facing, and I want to be able to say, if somebody asks me, you get $10 million from the government, what's in it for me? Want to be able to say that there are things that are going directly into the community that are touching the lives of as many of our citizens as possible, and I really see those two things as the answer to that. One is affecting individual families and households, and the other is affecting in a positive way our nonprofits that really do really are the boots in the ground that are doing the good things in our community. So I do still support those two things and doing them in this first round here. Code enforcement abatement, again, for the same reasons, I do support that. I think it's something that we can point to as a physical, tangible action that's being taken with this money that will improve our community. I am kind of, I have more of a question when it comes to county fire equipment. I'm not sure who to put it to. Could we benefit from, I mean, can we hold off until October 1st and spend some more time looking at what our needs might be? I mean, I'm sure you've thought about what your needs are quite a bit over a long period of time, so I don't necessarily know that you need more time to think about that, but.
And Chairman, I have another question that kind of goes along with that maybe could be answered at the same time. And I'm looking at the water tender, the $315,000. If we ordered that today, how much money do we have to put down? What would it take? And then it takes a year for it possibly to come in. So that we wouldn't pay all of that up front to order it, right? Go ahead.
Good morning, Andy Murphy, Assistant County Fire Chief. So there are different things with just addressing the water tender. So there can be, generally there's about a 10% down, but there's also some savings if you pay it all at once and pay it early. So it kind of offsets that. So that's something we always consider. And it is at least 12 months for a water tender. Fire engines take a little bit longer, a little more complicated, more pipes and compartments and that sort of thing. On the list here, I just wanted to, we consider all our work. Let me start over. We consider and are aware of all the needs of county fire in every aspect. And as we've discussed in the past, every part of the fire department is underfunded. We balance the funds availability, frequency of use, the age of the equipment, the serviceability, and the likelihood of other money becoming available to complete the purchase at a later date. We do have the fire engines. We have some fire engines that our oldest one is 35 years old. But these items here, after money that's been allocated over the last couple of years, replacing some of the frontline equipment and the grants that we've gotten in the past, these items here are our next priorities.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess, well, we're not getting clear direction on this, but I guess what I would say is I'm okay with the water tender and then the engine because they take so much time to get here. And then could we revisit the other equipment at a late, after October 1st? I mean, would that help get you where you need to be right now?
Good morning, Nick Cashy, Tuolumne County Fire Chief. To answer your question, yes.
Okay.
Because this is more than we had before.
Okay.
So we are just happy that fire is your priority and that you are putting us up to be allocated the funds to support that. If there needs to be further discussion to validate the list or adjust that list, we're very much open. But we also want to communicate exactly what the needs are so that you know that we're being responsible with the funds that you are giving us.
Okay. And so we would need to decide right now, CIO Riggs, what specific items. We can't just say you get this X amount of money and go do what you need with it. We have to specifically say we want particular items of equipment off of this list that the chief provided us, or can we leave it up to the fire agency to decide?
So your board can direct the amount of money you want transferred into the fire fund, and then you could direct your CAO staff to work with the fire staff to identify the equipment they need the most with the amount that you allocate so that it's prioritized.
Okay, that's what I want. Okay, so I'll agree with Supervisor Goldenberg then. 800,000 for the fire equipment. I think that'll take off a bit of the total, but still get us where we need to be in terms of the needs for fire. Okay, and then so the one that I really wanted to highlight is the space needs study, and it's something that I don't think we talked about much, and so I did want to talk about it a little bit. We need the space study in order to move forward on renovating some of these other properties in the county. So I really genuinely do see that as an immediate need. We can't move forward until we do that. So I really feel strongly that we do need to authorize a space needs study. I almost prioritize that above nearly everything else on the list because of the timing required. We until we have that in hand, we're not going to be able to reduce the costs related to some of the rental properties that the taxpayers are paying for every year. And I see that as a way to, it's the first step along a road to leverage these ARP funds for forever, for the future, so that we're saving money on these rented properties. That's going back into our general fund. It's going back into our fund for HHSA. And ultimately, that money that we save turns into services for the community for the long run. And so I've always had a really big emphasis on that this ARP is an opportunity not just to, buy shiny new things, but to invest in our community in ways that will carry on through so that our children and our children's children will see the benefits. So it seems like a small thing and it sounds really boring when you read it on paper. Space needs study doesn't really jump off the page, but I see that as a very important thing. So I strongly support the space needs study. I am also, I'm okay deferring on the Public Works document management system. I think we can probably find a way to, whether we're either using fund balance or, I think that's going to happen soon, regardless of what we do here. But I'm okay waiting till October 1st. If we can't figure out a way to do it between now and then we'll do it after that time. So GIS software, I think, is an easy thing to say yes to. So I won't belabor that any longer. In addition, the printer scanner, I see those two things as going hand in hand. So those two things, yes. EOC parking lot, it's a relatively small cost for something that I think will have a good, will be very publicly facing. So I don't know. I could go either way on that. If the total of the board doesn't support it, then I can back off on it. You know what? I think I will, because I appreciate and I get the point of Supervisors Half and Kirk. I think that is something that's not an emergency. We could probably defer. So I've been convinced. You've seen it all, folks. So don't ever say that I can't change my mind. I support putting that off until a later point to discuss. And I do support the animal control equipment. I could kind of, I agree with Supervisor Brandon's point about subtracting the barn from that. Is Kelly here? So could we take that? How much was the barn again? And I wrote it down, but I'm kind of scribbled here. So the barn was 25,000. Is that a cost that we could put off, or is that? How would you rank these in terms of you need them right now? There's danger to animals or to our staff.
Yeah, the barn would probably be the last last request. We do have a 3-sided, if you want to call it a structure out there, it can house like one animal. So yeah, so I think there's a goat maybe out there right now. We had a pig recently. So so it does get used. It is an item that just doesn't sit there. We do frequently have livestock come in that need shelter from the sun when we have our 100-degree weather. However, we do have something. So yeah, I would probably put that last.
Okay.
Supervisor Campbell, just because Supervisor Brandon had something, and I think since you have Kelly up here, she might be able to help. This barn is not meant for large-scale events when we use the fairgrounds. This is meant when we have to take animals in. So if she has more than one goat or lamb or horse, she no longer has shade for those animals to be secure and out of the sun. Could put their health and lives at risk. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that. This is not when we have a fire and we move animals down to the fairgrounds.
Correct.
These are when you actually take possession of animals that maybe, for various reasons, have to go under your control.
Yes, yes. Recently we took a pig in from a marijuana bust. We've had miniature horses out there. So yeah, we do frequently take in livestock that we and sometimes there are more than one animal. But in the event of a large scale, I had mentioned to Supervisor Brandon though that that if the fairgrounds were busy, during fair, then we do have other resources that we work with the community to house livestock, but it would also be beneficial to have something a little bit larger at our facility for more than one animal.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess at the risk of adding complexity, I would defer that. So then it would be, the total would be 60,000, I guess, for all of the other things. And then something like the barn, maybe we can reassess that next year, or maybe we could try to do some fundraising or something like that. I think we can probably figure out at a later point. I don't know. I think the rest of you kept it simple, right? Just supported the...
I just wanted to ask our board, obviously the fire equipment is very important, and I think it's important to get it ordered. And I love how they work where they get a discount when they order it all up front and that money is spent and we don't get the benefit of that money until a year later whenever the equipment comes in. So I would ask your board to reconsider those two pieces of equipment if we're going to go with it, and just putting the 10% down. I don't want to be hamstrung by too much spending right now. And, we'll have the money to pay for it one way or the other if we commit to the 10% down and get them ordered. And that fulfills our first goal of our, what we're working towards this year. And then as soon as we figure out how we're going to spend things come October 1st, we can put the rest of the money down on it and maybe still get the percentage off. But let's be very careful about how we do this so we don't hamstring ourselves in advance by too much spending.
Sorry, I thought it was on. Debbie Batista, Auditor, Controller, Money Person. We're confusing cash flow and budgeting. You have to budget for the full amount of this equipment. We need to legally obligate these funds to buy the $315,000 piece of equipment. We can't budget $31,500. Now, we can make a choice and not, do the math. The treasurer right now is earning less than 1%. The discount they give us for the cash as well exceeds that. We actually make money if we pay it up front, but we can certainly look at that and from a cash standpoint, not put all the money down. But from a budget standpoint, you need to budget if you want to buy the $315,000 piece of equipment, the full $315,000. We're confusing cash flow and budgeting.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, and so that was all I had. I think I landed on no barn for animal control. I lost track of what the majority of the board was at on animal control, so I'll let you all figure out and interpret that. But I did want to see, I hope I hammered the space needs study. I'm not sure if we were there. Did you see a majority on that, or? That was the other thing I was going to hammer, in reference to those last comments.
So I didn't speak specifically to the barn. I voted to go with all the animal control. And personally, I still feel we should do the barn as well because, they don't have a good place now. Okay. It's not that much money when we're looking at this picture.
I agree.
Would the 60,000 be a compromise in between? Because we kind of have on the low end and then a full amount. And
No, in my mind, the 60,000 is not good. If we're going to do the barn, we would need to allot the money for that. If you take off the 25, then you don't have the barn. I mean, it's not. That's just what it is. So
Are you advocating for 60,000 or the full 85?
Well, I think it would be 80, I believe, if the sheriff was going to do the laptops. So I would be advocating for the 80. Correct.
Just for clarification on the laptops, while the sheriff can provide the laptops, it sounds like there would still be some additional costs associated with that for the hardware to install the unit. So it wouldn't completely negate all of the costs for installing the laptops, but there would be, I think they have about 3 vehicles that we'd have to buy some equipment for. So there would be some additional cost in there.
Yeah, I think we've basically got it down to whether we're going to do the 85 or the 80, which would be subtracting the barn. And so, I'm sorry, our 60. Yeah.
Okay.
So, if we're comfortable on moving that direction, yes. So would you mind going kind of
so
list
one
by
item,
list? Sorry.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Campbell, I don't recall that you specifically discussed the IT cybersecurity.
Oh, did I skip
in your
it?
discussion?
So yes, and so I, like as I said before, I do agree with the IT. I think that's pretty obvious.
I missed that as well.
I think you did. I thought I had written it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of left that off. But yeah. So if you could kind of give us a rundown of what.
Well,
we
if it
have
makes
up
it
to this point.
simpler, I actually heard 3 voices that didn't include the barn in their discussion. So we had one that just wanted the shower, one that was a shower, and I think the washer and dryer. Coming up to 30,000. Then we had two without the barn and one the full amount. So three without the barn, and two with.
I think the easiest way to do this is to just barn or no barn, raise your hand, and we'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I was giving an opportunity
So-
if anybody.
I
So-
don't think the barn is critical.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think
that
you have to
that's
do-
what it's not that that's not needed. It's
But if there's
it's
a
not
majority, then that's why we
critical.
need to.
I kind of agree with the methodology and not that the barn isn't a necessary element. Anyway,
Now, same thing minus that then would be the 60,000 going kind of, is there a majority?
so
for
then
that?
it would be 60,000, and that would include all of the other improvements to animal control.
Okay.
Okay.
Including road or floor repair?
Yes.
I didn't think that was critical, but
There
You
are
guys do the measurement?
currently three votes for the floor repair.
well, there you go. I don't agree, but I'm outvoted.
Okay, so let's take the next one now.
Let's just go down the line like that.
Right, so if your board would like now, I can go through this list as well as the other items that we heard that are not on this list that
Yes.
I've added in as your board brought them up.
Yeah, so let's start with this list and then the remainder of the things that you heard a majority on. then
Where
we
I
can
have
go.
consensus is the first one there, pre-fund fire and code enforcement, which we have previously discussed. Moving down, I heard consensus on code enforcement and abatement, the additional 250,000. There was some discussion on adding another 100,000 for the vegetation management. But so far consensus just for the 250,000. Consensus on the county fire equipment, and we can circle back to that because there was some discrepancy in what everybody supported. Consensus on the space needs study. Consensus on the GIS software.
You said there was a majority on the spacing study?
Correct.
Okay.
GIS software as well as the surveyor printer and scanner. Animal control at the $60,000 level, and the increased cybersecurity. Some of the other items that were brought up, but not that were brought up by some of your board members, is the mailer to community businesses. I did not have consensus on that. I have two for that. Is there any further discussion on that one?
Yes, I was actually going to mention that. I do. I support that with a caveat that I don't think that we're solid on the information for what we plan to do for business licenses. So I would want to wait until we have that resolved. I mean, do you feel that's resolved to the point where we can send out a mailer informing people that they need to sign up for business licenses? Okay, so I do think that's a good idea, but I want that on there. So maybe once
fine
we,
with that.
yeah. So whether
So
we,
include it.
you want to include it now or wait?
Yeah, I think it's an immediate need, regardless of whether we put anything in there about the business license. There's a lot of other stuff that businesses need to know in order to protect themselves. I would suggest we come back, we would approve it for spending up to, but no more than $10,000, and if it's less, great. And come back fairly quickly to the next board meeting or as soon as possible, outlining the kinds of things that need to be on that mailer so that we can review them.
I completely agree with that. We had the meeting talking about free and low-cost internet service and devices. We've got solid waste vouchers. We've got, SNAP and all these programs, and we got so much. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay, that's fine by me.
I concur. Also, I don't think that I expressed it. I don't know what your count was, but depending where we're at with the consensus on the board, I'd be amenable to adding the $100,000 for veg management.
Okay.
$100,000 on the veg management portion of the code enforcement.
So I think we're going to go back to that, right? Because
I have a couple that we'll come back to.
Okay, so we need to go back to that anyway. So let's finish the list, and then that'll be where we'll start once we
Just
get
have
through.
a few more here. So there was some additional discussion on discretionary funding for business and innovation of up to $20,000. And I'll just go through these, so please stop me if you hear something where you want to have further discussion on. Triple Cape Seal, we do have some in the budget already, so I'm assuming this would be in addition to what's in the budget currently today. Go ahead, Supervisor.
I think on that, Supervisor Goldenberg had mentioned that. Just clarification on the budgeting for the Cape Seal. Just from the budget presentation, it seemed like that money was not there to do what was a significant patch we were talking about, if we could do a portion of it, or it didn't seem like the funding was there to me, but it sounds like I might be wrong.
There is $335,000 currently in the budget for Cape Seal, for Triple Cape Seal projects.
Okay.
I think it was like 1.1 or 2 miles, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly how far it was. Okay, moving on, then there was the volunteer program, the $50,000 for CERT for increasing volunteerism, as well as hazard pay for people that did not telework. That may be a bargaining item that we may have to discuss separately, so we'll scratch that for now, I believe. And if there's any discussion on any of those other items.
Can you slow down a little bit? I'm trying to take notes. So 50,000 towards CERT?
Yes, to increase volunteerism.
So that's separate than the community projects grant program.
That was brought up separately, correct?
Separately, okay. So 50,000.
So I think where we're getting a little confused is I think we've gone off what we had consensus on. So could you just go over what do we have consensus on right now, and then we'll address those things that are not quite there yet.
Correct, yeah, so
what can we completely check off the list?
So what we can completely check, well, we have, okay, so let's circle back then. So we have consensus on code enforcement, the abatement portion of it. What we don't have consensus on now is the total amount. So we've heard 350 and 250,000. So if we can get some clarity on that. And the additional 100,000 would be for vegetation management.
I thought that we had consensus on 350.
We originally had consensus on 250,000. It's the abatement side of it, not the
for abatement.
personnel.
I mean, 250, yeah. So we're getting confused again. Okay, first on the list is pre-funded code enforcement personnel,
and we have
350.
consensus.
We have consensus on that. Second is economic stimulus,
No
RAD card.
consensus.
We don't have consensus. Third is community projects grant. We don't have consensus.
Correct.
Okay. And then fourth is the code enforcement abatement agreement, but not on a dollar figure.
Correct.
So would anyone like to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd like to consider keeping it at $250,000 and waiting until we get very close with our new hazardous vegetation management ordinance code, having, appointed, what's the word for it, undirected money that we can use at the time when we come forward with the new ordinance code. That's the time to allocate some money for the seed funding for this program. And we don't need to necessarily do that now because we don't have any way of enforcing it anyway, because we don't have the code written. So I would just, like to not spend so much money so that we have some of this money later on when we have the program put together.
So that makes sense to me.
So what's the dollar figure that you're putting out? Oh.
For zero extra for the hazardous vegetation management.
Just go with the 250.
But the 250, yeah, go with it.
Okay. And I agree with that.
I concur.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, so that what was listed and what Liz and had talked about, that was the staff recommendation, we're agreeing to that for the 250. Okay, all right.
And then majority rules, my take on it was wait and not spend it. So that's where I stand on it. But I hear what you guys are saying.
All right, so you've got, I think, 4 for that.
So we're
Okay,
staying at
so now
250.
the fire equipment.
Fire equipment is the other one where we had consensus, however, not in the final dollar amount.
Okay, so I think David and I were on the figure of 800,000, which would basically get us up to everything except some of the tools and equipment, and then one of the utility vehicles, or all 3 utility vehicles. Yeah.
And I had heard, and I'll let you speak to it, Supervisor Brandon, that you were looking to actually bump it up to 1.3. So the question would be, are you in agreement of the 800?
I think I was in line with the thought that it's going to take a while before we end up getting these engines. But if the board's with the 800, I'd be okay with the 800. I definitely would like the consideration of the Columbia. Only one last point to make on it. In the where the engines are going, so a lot of, I believe, the Amador stations. A lot of those are Pinecrest, Twain Harte, it's Groveland, it's every area of the county that's kind of not around mine. And I have 2 districts, I think, that really could use that type of support as my last little request on that. But I would be okay with 800,000.
Can I ask how much it would be, because I don't have the breakdown in front of me, for the water tender and the, I forget what type engine it was? There was a type 6 engine? What was it?
So 550,000 for the water tender and then the type 6.
For both of them combined?
Those 2 combined. So it's 315,000 for the water tender and then 240,000 for the type 6.
That's what I'd be in favor of right now, and then review all the rest in October.
I'm still good with the 800. We had consensus on that. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I'm still okay with the 800 in that, and I completely understand, and I'm like almost there with you, but I just kind of am coming at it from the perspective that we're going to be spending that money anyway, and so might as well get it in the budget, get it allocated so that they can start getting the equipment.
Hey, on that note, I have a quick question. Murphy, you can just nod your head yes or no, but basically the snowmobiles, is that because of like that issue that we had up the hill this year at the windstorms? And so on that note, we had some people who almost passed away in their houses. I'm all for fire funding. It's all emergency savings. So I'm at the 1 million, but it doesn't sound like a majority is there. So more money towards fire, I'll always support that. So wherever the majority lands, more money for fire, I'm all about it.
So you're okay with 800,000?
I'm okay with the million, but if 800 is the majority, and I'll go with the majority on the 800.
Okay. And it doesn't mean that we won't add that money at a later point. I think we were just prioritizing it by things where there's the most immediate need to. So.
If I give you all a really bad look, will you give me $1 million for fire?
I just wanted to clarify where Supervisor Half was on it too, with the fire. Sorry.
She
was it 800 or was it?
She wanted to buy the 2
the immediate
water the water tender and the type 6, and then leave it there.
Same. If I could bump it up, I will.
Okay.
Not exactly leave it there, but review the rest in October. I'm not.
Yes.
It's very important. I'm not.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the urgency factor, and that we need to get those 2 things ordered right now.
I think we've all got coming at it from a very good perspectives, and so I think we've got it at 800,000. We've got some consensus there, and with respect to each of these supervisors, I think everybody considers it a very high priority. So,
Supervisor Campbell, something I want to make sure I bring to all of the board's attention is if your board wants to make additional allocations of this money after September 21st, it will require a 4/5 vote. So let's make sure, because you're hearing the difference in where you're aligned right now. So you will not be able to do anything else after September unless there are 4 of you who would all agree on that. I just want to make sure, because I'm hearing a lot come back in October, and it will take a lot more work for you to get that, to get something changed then. Just want to make sure that that was understood.
good. Okay, so space needs study, we were, I think, in agreement on.
Correct.
And then Public Works document system, where did we land on that?
No consensus. It's off for now.
Okay. And then GIS software?
Consensus.
Okay. Survey, and then the printer scanner, I think.
Consensus.
Okay. Parking lot?
No consensus. I have 2.
And then I think we resolved the animal control.
Yes, animal control and the increased cybersecurity, as well as the mailer, have consensus.
Okay.
The one I just want to circle back on real quick, because we're going back and forth here. I just want to make sure on the RAD card, I had 2. One of my counterparts had 3. I just want to make sure that as we go down the line here.
Okay, let's go ahead. Supervisor.
I think from what I know of the RAD card, it goes very quickly. And I think we need to have time to plan and train and get ready to go October 1st, which is perfect for Christmas season. So I would recommend we get ready for it, but don't allocate or don't spend the money until after we do our final budget.
So we don't want it included at this point.
I don't want it included, but I'm willing to hear what everybody
So
else
there
thinks.
was consensus from at least 3, I think 4, to delay the program, to that and the community grant, projects grant program.
That kind of goes along with what Debbie Batista said too about waiting on some final rule information to come in. That buys us that time.
Yeah, and I just, okay, well, I won't belabor it anymore. I was kind of looking more at CAO Riggs' perspective, is that if this is something that we all agree that we do want to do, it's easier to do it now than to wait until October 1st. But I can see that there's not agreement with me, so.
Well, could we agree to do it but not start the funding until October 1st? I'm fine with that.
Well, then Kirk
That
pipes
sounds
up.
like a good workaround.
I still want info from Cole about those loans and stuff, because I do see how this will impact our community, but I might get information from Cole on that loan stuff that just might rise above that need. So that's kind of where I'm at. I hear what you're saying, because we absolutely, when we answer to the public, when they say you got $10 million, what did you give to the public? I want to say I did the most bang for the buck where I could help the community the most. And so I need more information to make that informed decision. So.
All right.
Okay, so and just so your board is aware, if you would like us to start working on this project, the contract ultimately would come back to your board for approval. So we could, earmark that money now and say, it's in there, we've included it. However, your board will get another chance to say yes or no, we want to do the contract.
Does that sound good?
I'd be good with that.
Okay. All right. So I'm good with that too. So you have 4 for that.
Oh, okay. All right. So just to give your board an update of where we are at right now in the total allocation, we received just under $5.3 million. With what we have consensus on right now, we're about 2.5 million, actually a little over 2.5 million, meaning the 2.7 million that's remaining there will be unallocated, which means you will have that to make future decisions with as we move forward.
Can I, on my notes, can I clarify? Security 300,000, mailer 10,000, and then CERT 50,000, specifically CERT program?
I don't think
No,
there
sir.
is consensus on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no on the CERT?
No on the cert
Not right now.
right now.
Hey, when we're done with this, just in case I forget, can you summarize this and email it to us?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So any other hangers-on or lingering questions that you have for the board?
I do not. I think we have consensus and
Okay.
we have direction.
I just wanted to make a comment. Got to get my glasses on here. So we had originally, from our last meeting, thought about spending almost 3.3 million, and we've reduced it to 2.5 million. And I just want to say thank you that we're delaying some of those bigger decisions until later, so that we're not, like I said before, hamstrung. Thank you.
And I concur with you completely. I think that we did a good job boiling it down to the things that are really going to have the most impact and really matter in our community right now. And that's why this was such a valuable process. And I really also want to thank the county administrator's office and all of the departments that came up to share their needs and expand on the deficiencies and show our community ways that we can improve our standard of living in Tuolumne County for the long run. So it took a lot of work to get here, and it's going to be 3 years more worth of work in the future, but it's an exciting time in our county to, we have a lot of opportunities, so thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and conclude our 9 a.m. appointment. We do have a closed session item on our agenda as well. And so we'll look to our board clerk, Ms. Heather Ryan, to read our closed session item, and then I'll ask for public comment, and then we will adjourn this public portion of the meeting.
Closed session, conference with labor negotiators Tracy Riggs, County Administrator, Eric Earhart, Assistant County Administrator, and Ann Fremd, Human Resources Director. Authority Government Code Section 54957.6, all bargaining units.
Okay, would anyone might like to make a public comment on this item?
I would just like to ask you to be mindful that pretty much all of your staff is underpaid.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak, or anyone on the phones? Okay. I'll look to our county council. Do we expect a report out? Okay, thank you very much.